little bit. There you go.
Anyone have on their walks a favorite thing that you find foraging on various journeys that you've done? Or maybe
Mm.
thoughts on how foraging has changed your relationship to a place or to a plant or
Um, I have um I have this great memory of oh, Sheena, you raised your hand.
It's
Quiet.
okay. It's
No, you
okay.
go for it then.
Just standing in the field with Henry and eating, picking and eating sorrel, and then realizing when I was home, it was growing in my yard. And all of the things that we were, not all, the many things that we came across, that suddenly I realized, oh my gosh, wait a minute, I already have that, and I didn't realize. So I love the surprise of knowledge that way, of being shown. Yeah.
Nice. Sheena?
Yeah, foraging takes me back to like nostalgic memories from a certain time from the past, and then this like higher connection to the earth and a place that probably just exists in my imagination, but it's somewhere in the collective psyche. So yeah.
Mhm. Gorgeous. Thank you. Jay, next slide.
I want to share one more story. Um, when Henry and I say we slowed groups down, or it wasn't just us. One of my favorite memories of foraging is we're walking with a group set on repairing cairns, and we're trying to make our way to camp. And I'm walking out front, kind of leading the way, and I turn back, and the entire group of walkers looks like they've all been shot. They're all laying down in the field, gorging themselves on blueberries, just laying, eating, not even having to move anywhere. And so there's these moments out there where uh, taking this very Iceland is known for being a harsh landscape, you know, land of lava and ice and storms, but then seeing everyone curled up on the side of hillsides with blueberries, being taken care of in that gentle way in the bushes, it just like really reshaped my perception of where we were.
So walking and camping wild is obviously an inherent part of any trail project experience, and um, the the process of walking and um, its close relationship to freedom of thought and the kind of emergent property of being out in the fabric of wildness carries its own medicine. And I'm sure, as all of us are keen walkers, we've all experienced that to varying degrees. And so, yeah, Jay and I and whoever else was helping facilitate the project would have a quite light touch facilitation style at certain points and trust in the experience itself being able to guide people on their own creative internal external inquiries. I'm currently enrolled I'm currently taking part in a performance art training in Berlin, which is kind of like a very part-time course, but I was given the advice on about to tell a story, stand up and tell a story in front of people. See this as a wilderness journey. What advice would you give yourself before embarking on a wilderness journey, and then just apply that to the kind of performative journey that you're also about to embark on? And so you go prepared with a certain amount of preparation under your belt, but always expecting the unexpected and being willing to welcome wildness into the journey. And yeah, I don't know, that's I think something I've been very much aligned with, that notion of seeing the walking experience as a kind of slightly unpredictable dance partner, and our facilitation approach reflecting that in all the magic that it offers.
Our we had 2 summers of returning to the Westfjords with groups of volunteers, largely from Europe, but really it was an open application process for people to apply to spend a week or two in the mountains at a time, rebuilding cairns, living out of teepees and tents largely. Um, and this became my favorite practice of our entire time in the Westfjords because we were spending so much time working with stone and working together and both kind of giving back to the trails that we were taking part of, um, but also really uh, finding an intimacy with the landscape because we would find like this cairn, which was repaired. If we repaired it, it meant that it had been a cairn was there historically and had either fallen over and just looked like a heap of rocks, or sometimes these cairns, through the freeze and thaw, the ice would kind of keep moving the rocks again and again every year and turn them into rock soup. So some of the cairns we would find would just be flat ground, nothing vertical, but you would see this kind of circle of stone of a certain size that kind of indicated there used to be a cairn here, um, which would mean that we could come back and try to rebuild one so that people wouldn't get so lost in the fog and mist and clouds and rain and snow. Um, so we'd find these locations and then need to go and try to source stones and picking up every single stone and turning it over and finding its place. Doing that day after day after day on the hillside and slowly kind of moving along trails just became a very, very intimate way of learning the landscape and seeing how these kind of places exist.
So, yeah, this part of the project was funded by the European Outdoor Conservation Association, who they're a member-based organization of outdoor gear producers, and each company contributes a certain amount of money each year for membership, and then that money gets given to various conservation projects around the world. And we won a public vote one year, received the money to restore cairns, as Jay's just spoken about, and also plant native trees, which the Vikings and their sheep have removed from the landscape. And so we set up a project to plant 10,000 birch and rowan trees at a historic site in the Westfjords called Hrapseri, which means raven's sandspit as a translated word. But it's a famous site because Jon Sigurðsson was Icelandic's independence hero. Iceland used to be governed by Denmark, and he was responsible for Icelandic society becoming independent. And he was born in the Westfjords, spent a lot of his time moving back and forth between Iceland and Denmark. And then further back, there was a healer who also lived on site here. So yeah, we spent 10 days or so planting trees in the rain with a group of volunteers, and
The terns diving down at us in certain locations.
yeah, it was spring, so all the birds were out nesting on the mountainside, and yeah, we invited reflections on the life of the forest, the life of our own shorter lives, and the contributions these trees will not make to tackling climate change because they grow too slowly in this part of the world. But there was something symbolic about it, and yeah, I think as a facilitated trail project, one of our objectives has always been to orientate people, whether artists or conservation volunteers or just regular clients, orientate them towards greater ecological appreciation, empathy, and knowledge. And yeah, by using the medium of tree planting, we were able to touch a point within the soul of one man you can see here in the middle with a red scarf on, who got back to France and decided to leave his job in Paris and go to the south of France and become a beekeeper. I think still to this day, it's one of the kind of nicest bits of feedback we've received.
And one of the other wayfinding kind of practices that we really try to encourage for people is to engage with water. This is a beautiful hot spring. This entire pool in the foreground is kind of fed by a very hot natural spring that wells up kind of in a soily hole in the side of a hillside and then is piped into this pool where it kind of cools down to a more moderate temperature. And so you get both these relaxing, warm waters to swim in, but also the fjords themselves to be able to get into cold water and really have that bracing engagement with wildness or with the entire fjord feels like it's embracing you. It was one of, again, my favorite things. I still do it. Here in New York, I'll go every Sunday through the winters to go swim in the Atlantic. I know Henry is also fond of jumping into some of the wilder waters still throughout the winters, to really be able to see, to have that direct skin contact with something so vital to this area.
And there's Iceland is dominated by water in many ways. Whilst walking, you do not have to carry your own water because there's such a high prevalence of streams that you can pull water directly from and drink without boiling. And every small town has a swimming pool, a heated outdoor hot pool. And yeah, I mean, the whole economy is in some ways shaped by water in terms of its reliance on fishing historically. And yeah, the materiality of these different components of the environment, they're so present in the landscape there, in a way that, yeah, feels somewhat unadulterated and incredibly special for that reason. The quality of air, the quality of water, the quality of space, the quality of weather. There's just a lot to celebrate there, and a lot to be thankful for. And it makes facilitation and invitation easy to extend.
And we have had relative success inviting people into the cold water for swims, either in the lakes or in the fjords. Maybe a little poll of the Zoom call here. How many people here enjoy swimming or dipping into cold water on occasion? Okay. Ali, do you think you'll be able to find any cold water where you are in India?
No water at all. I'm not a regular cold water swimmer, but I swim outdoors in London. It's not quite the same, but I can find it in London. Yeah.
So part of our project involved leading walking artist residencies, and this entailed finding a grant, which was then able to enabled us to offer the experience at a reduced rate for people, and we put a call out for applications, and then ran a walking trip for, I think there was a group of roughly 10 to 12 twice, and these trips had a slightly different quality to the ones we've been talking about in terms of using various activities like cairn building or tree planting. This one was a little more kind of loose and roving and intuitive, I guess. I found, artists arrived with a wonderfully open energy, and what emerged within the group was often unpredictable, wonderfully creative, and resonant with the experiences that we were having. Like, the expression of those experiences were very resonant. And here I've just provided a little collection of images that show some of the responses that people shared with us following their journey. Deb, who we've already heard from on the call, is pictured across the bottom here, those 5 images that have been placed next to one another, exploring plants and hairstyles and their in relation to the body. We had another artist who did a little painting every single day and still does, not only of Iceland, but wherever she is in the world. Had someone create a wonderful notebook on trail. Here you can see horsetail tea pictured. Horsetail, it was the plant Jay mentioned at the beginning as being useful for providing answers through dreams. If you drink some tea and then ask for a dream to reveal itself. And believe it or not, this top left picture is taken at midnight after a long day and maybe a little whiskey and some singing on the rocks. But more importantly, as importantly to the individual's experience, was the emergence of a kind of narrative of representation of these wild places that emerged through the experiences that we were offering others, and then through and within the group itself. And so what we came to realize, having run a collection of these different experiences and invited people to respond in their own idiosyncratic ways, was that we had this enormously wonderful and creative, colorful resource or collection of different responses from different people in relation to a very specific experience of walking and living and engaging with the cultural, historical, ecological stories of this place. And some of that would be photography, some of it would be writing, some of it would be painting. And yeah, as the years passed by and began to wonder, okay, so what is the next stage of this project? It seemed to present itself very naturally that it would be wonderful to kind of put all of this information, all of this experience, all of this knowledge into a shareable format. That would be part creative endeavor between Jay and I, but also curatorial, as in based on the curation of creative offerings from everyone that we'd guided through the region. And so, yeah, about 5 years ago, we started a kind of a new mountainous endeavor of publishing a single guidebook that was definitely only going to take a year. It ended up being 3 books and a map and taking 4 years or more. But Jay, I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, we tried so hard to make one book. And then I don't think we ever realized that self-publishing 3 books is actually a lot harder than just making one book. As Henry said, we kind of had run these experiences, had seen the kind of wealth and material around us in our field notes about kind of the plants and animals and walking routes, and really wanted to be able to share it with more people, to make it a bit more self-starter so that people could really go out there without trying to have Henry and I there every single time. Like, how do we influence, we're some of the few people out there advocating for walking tourism in the region, when car-based tourism is so prevalent. So we decided to try to create the first guidebooks specific to the region, even though the ecology book is certainly much more kind of relevant beyond it. But the notes on walking, and then the weirder things, the more creative engagement, the stories, more poems, more recipes, in the wayfinding, in the Westfjords, to really nail into that practice that we started calling wayfinding practices, to kind of move through all these different spaces as a product. And in itself, I found a lot of value in taking what we had done out in the world that was very relational, very situated, and kind of, slippery. It lives mostly in our memories and some stacked rocks and planted trees on a hillside. But now, through kind of retooling and reprocessing and spending a lot more time reflecting on this, as a new creative process for us and those engaged with it, to be able to create these to help really try to characterize the region in a unique way. And when we invite people to go walking, or travel through the Westfjords, we really wanted to make sure that we are doing it in a way that kind of matched the ethics and ethos and invitation that we've been extending in person. So this was our attempt at that. This is our designer, Bonnie, with us in Italy, looking at our book, which was printed on pallets of paper at a time. It was incredible to watch them having to turn a page or to flip them over by using an entire like forklift machine that wouldn't be able to fit inside of my apartment in Brooklyn. So this was in the early part of 2001, 2002, or sorry, 2022, something like that.
2022.
And as the theme for the Zoom call is walking artists, we decided to kind of share with you a spread from the book. It's a photograph of a very common ground cover in this area with words. Maybe Henry, can you talk about the process more, about like what we did to?
Yeah, so this image is surrounded by a mixture of Icelandic and English words, all of them alluding to or similes. Is that the right word? Similes for walking. I'm not sure similes is the right word, but someone more intelligent can correct me if they feel like it. So we've got climb, scamper, run, duck walk, plunge, bushwhack, prowl, roam, scrapes, dance, balance, teeter, scramble, cruel. Anyway, these are the English versions. And the Icelandic words, yeah, so we actually did an Icelandic version of all of our books and our maps. So we ended up doing getting it all translated, and that was an important part in the projects. I felt it was, yeah, it was a complete pain in the ass, and gave me a lot of sleepless nights, and was very tricky to make changes to the English text and then have them translated, and then things would change the whole time, and it was never quite finished. So I was always going back to the translator. But I am very happy that we managed to do it, because I think, yeah, creating a representation of a place that one is not born in, that one is not from initially, as a country, it is obviously slightly problematic. And I was very sensitive to this. I mean, even if I was from a place, I think I'd still feel a great deal of responsibility in how one represents and creates an invitation and a representation of that place. And yeah, doing it in Iceland was, there was a certain necessity to overcome within myself a kind of a desire to hide away and not share all of this information, and be kind of like unseen in that process. But yeah, I think managing to get it all translated, and we printed 200 copies in Icelandic, and they sold very quickly within Iceland. I think, yeah, there was a kind of an appreciation and gratitude for us having done that. And yeah, I kind of wish now that we'd printed a few more in Icelandic, but we had no idea that there would be any demand for it in Icelandic. So yeah, it was an important part of the puzzle of our project completing itself there. And yeah, hence why the front covers of our books have both English and Icelandic text on, because yeah, to change the covers from one or the other, we decided basically to combine them because it was slightly cheaper, and yeah, a nice aesthetic appeal as well.
So this actually concludes our slideshow presentation of the evening. I'll leave this here for a moment so that if anyone does want to kind of find links for more, we can share this again later. But for the remaining time, we're open to questions and comments or reflections, or more dialogue about this before we go for today.
And maybe it'd be also great to hear from Deb, who walked on one of our walking artist residencies as well. If you have anything else to share about your memories of that, Deb.
Oh my gosh. I think that it was life-changing experience for me. I don't think I know it was. For someone, I'm a studio artist, and I was really steeped in my tools in my studio, and I just wanted to not feel like art had to be tied to some kind of heavy machinery. And so that was my first experience, letting go of everything. And I just remember showing up in Westfjords, 41 degrees, raining, and we slept outside, and I thought, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. And I had to say to myself, I think it was like 41 or 43 degrees Fahrenheit most of the time, and rain, most like a little drizzly. And I had to find some inner warmth. So I just had to start saying to myself, I'm warm. I'm warm. I'm warm. Like, and I'm very suggestible. So it was working. And then my tent mate made me laugh so hard, which I think drove everybody else crazy, but we just made each other laugh, and that makes heat. And that so it was so it felt like the rest of the world just fell away, and it was just us and our horse for a little while, named Kari, who carried our food for a little while. And there's something about just being on in conditions that are hard, and finding something else in my being that was there, that was like a strength, that then my life has taken lots of turns and twists and traumas after that. I have the resolve there that I learned about what was maybe deep within, that would help me find some way to like walk through hard things. And yeah, so forever grateful. And I love my books, and I love the map. So glad you made that map. It's so beautiful. And please let us know how we can help spread the word for those books. So yeah.
Thanks, Dad. Does anyone else have a reflection or question? Or... In which case?
No, someone must have something to say. It looks really amazing.
Jana?
Have you had days on walks where you've had people from local communities or Icelandic people joining in for part of the time, or has it been essentially people from outside of Iceland who've walked together?
We've had guides join us from Iceland, and people living within the region, as in, you know, people. It's now quite a popular university town. So from the initial year of having 9 students there, I think it now has roughly 40 to 50 every year. And some of those people have chosen to stay in the region, and so they've joined us from their position of living there. But yeah, no, it's kind of a good question. It's a funny thing. You often find that people living in the region, unless they're farmers, they generally don't go into the mountains that much, at least not on foot. And some people will never have been up into the mountains, which, you know, it's kind of wild to think, given that, you know, it takes about 10-15 minutes to you know, begin your kind of hike up the nearest mountain. But you know, I've met plenty of people there who are not so keen, but yeah, it's
The outside of the sheep herding time, you know.
Yeah, it's the trails we were walking on have fallen out of use essentially, and whether you are a visitor to the region, or whether you are an Icelander visiting the region for your summer holidays, generally people go to an area called Hornstrandir, which is a nature reserve north of Isafjord, north of the town where I was studying. But I chose to focus on trails that connected the kind of rural communities that used to inhabit the region, primarily because yeah, I felt like it offered more cultural interactions, and actually you're far less likely to see anyone than if you go off into this nature reserve. So yeah, I don't know, it shines a light on the kind of uninhabited historical part of the walking story of the region. But people walk these trails, but maybe less than you might imagine.
Yeah, we would hear stories of like, no, I haven't taken that trail recently, but you know, my grandfather used to
Oh, that's interesting.
live here, and he lived or worked in the fjord over, so he would have
Mm.
to run that trail every single day, and he used to be able to do it within like 15 minutes, and it's like mind-blowing to hear some of these stories. But I would say that's also very true, that what Henry was saying, you know, these routes being very needed at the time, but then now, you know, it's much easier to get around by the roads, or um, you know, take a bike. Even biking is starting to grow in the region, as another way of getting around, but it's very nascent. Uh, Trying to get more infrastructure there for people to have bike repairs and pools.
Mm.
And what next? What's the next follow on from the project or the legacy?
As in, what next in the Westfjords, or what next for us
Or
personally?
what, say from your project? I mean, you've got the book out and it's out, and you know, is there something that is following on from it in spirit in somewhere else, or you know, or what have you both taken away from it that you're putting into the next thing that you're doing? What impact has it had on both of you?
This is quite the question. As Henry pointed to before, there's a bit of the like, I don't know, hangover is not quite the word, but like this, especially the book process, was years of kind of creative energy and really focused, pushing through COVID and all of that to make it happen. And I know for me, we talk about coming back to Iceland every summer, and this summer we may actually do it, to have another offering, invitation to have people join us there. And you know, I've been located in New York for the last 4 years and been researching coyotes in the city and really trying to. It's been interesting moving from a very open landscape to some of the most populous, dense areas, urban, very different landscape. Can't drink the water wherever you find it, kind of dealing with toxins and poisons and all sorts of issues. But I continue to try to find these opportunities that, like, through co-facilitating with Henry, look for social engagement around these topics to be able to bring the experiential kind of artistic practice together, both playfully and kind of very seriously in doing work in the land. You know, it wasn't just us always traipsing about, like really building cairns and planting trees is hard work. And there was a beauty in really kind of pushing into those spaces that I continue to try to look for.
For me, I think it's a question of weaving parts of the experience that running these projects offered and creating the books offered, and weaving those into new opportunities, both here in the UK and, you know, partly with you, Ali, with your Beach of Dreams project, and also the World Trails Network, this space. And yeah, I think the thing I resonated most with from our time in Iceland was the kind of creativity that emerged both within me and within the groups. And yeah, I think I'm attempting to maneuver myself into the space of being an artist and committing more fully to that, whilst at the same time continuing to hold space for others to experience and grow into ecological relationship. But yeah, still deciding where exactly to do that. But yeah. All right, we've hit the top of the hour. It's been really wonderful to be able to take a journey through Iceland with you all. It's really lovely to be able to revisit this story and the work Jay and I have done together. So thank you for turning up, and look out for the next one. And Jay, some concluding remarks from you, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. There's a contact form on our website, wayfinding.guide, or through social media. We're happy to keep making connections with folks and discussing these ideas.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. And we're doing the next one next month. I can't remember, Henry, if you've got the next date.
It's the Lebanese mountain trails, so that's one you do not want to miss. And that is on January the 19th. It's also featuring El Camino de Costa Rica. Both of those projects work with local communities. The Lebanon Mountain Trail mainly centered around food experience, and the Costa Rican initiative encourages local artisans through the medium of trails and people visiting these trails and walking these trails. So very beautiful work on both of those trails that I've some experience of the Lebanon one, and it's a great space.
Great. Happy Christmas,
Thank
everybody,
you.
wherever you are.
Thank
Good
you very
walking.
much.
Thanks, Ali.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.